GoLobos.com, LoboTV. Happy to be here with Bob Davie, the 31st head football coach at the University of New Mexico. And Coach Davie, welcome to Albuquerque and the University of New Mexico.
Excited to be here. You know, I said in a press conference, my wife and I, 35 years in major college football, experienced a lot of things, but I'm as excited as I've ever been to be here. I mean, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
A chance to come to a place like this that has every reason to be successful and make an impact. That's what coaching's about.
Yeah. What intrigued you most about this job, about taking this job?
I think I look at a program in a city like Albuquerque. It's a heck of a city. State University. I mean, it's the University of New Mexico. That excites me. I know there's a lot of pride here. To be the state university is something that's very exciting. I think the fact that it has been down in the situation I'm at in my life, in my career, is something I really wanted. Because I do think you can make a bigger impact at a place that's been down, but shouldn't be that down. So it's a lot of things. You know, my family is anyone that knows me, my family is the most important thing to me in my life, period, bar none. Timing for my family, to be able to share in this with me and to be able to give the kind of time that I know it takes to get this done. They can be a part of this instead of being separate from me like it was when I did this at Notre Dame. So it's just so many things. We could sit here for a long time with that.
10 years off from head coaching. I know people are probably interested in hearing about you know, how you make that transition from what you've been doing. Personally, I see that maybe as a plus, considering what you've been doing the past 10 years, being able to see all the football that you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly understand that Lobo fan sitting in northeast Albuquerque right now and says, do you mean to tell me we hired a guy that's been at ESPN for 10 years and hadn't coached in 10 years? I'd be nervous if I was that guy. But I hope people have confidence in me and realize that I've not been just that stereotypical guy that maybe you picture as doing football on television. I've lived my life every day as a football coach. Since I've left coaching, I always knew I was going to coach again. I honestly think I'm a better coach right now than I was the last game I coached at Notre Dame. I think everybody in whatever profession they're in should take a sabbatical, get away from their deal, go see how everybody else across the country that's very successful does it, and then come back to their job. And I think everybody would agree that they'd come back with a different perspective, more energized, probably more confident. It's been the greatest thing that happened to me in my life. I wouldn't trade the last 10 years that I've had at ESPN for anything.
Yeah. How do you, this program, I know you have probably some personal goals, certainly and team-oriented goals, but to get this, you know, this program kind of right, you know, back on track the way Lobo fans, Lobo players, student athletes want, you know, if you could kind of put that in.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I think I always talk about the word win. If you break it down, it stands for what's important now. What's important now? We know what it is. Stabilizing this program. This is a team and a program that's been beat up for an extended period of time. It's fragile. I need to stabilize. And then immediately I need to start changing the culture around here. Losing brings out the worst in all of us. So that's the starting point right there. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about, and I'm trying to find a way to work this into the Lobo. The word Lobo is outwork, out-discipline, and out-hit. I've got 3 things that I'm going to build this program on. And that's how I'm going to stabilize it, and that's how I'm going to change the culture. I'm going to get back to the little things of just doing things the right way and start from there. It may take a long time. It probably will take a long time, but we're going to do it the right way, and we'll get this thing built back.
Yeah. I know you visited with the current members of the football team earlier today. Just what was your message to them?
Yeah, you know, the first thing I told them was, I know you didn't have a vote. You didn't have a choice of who the coach was going to be. I also know if you did have a choice, I probably wouldn't have been the first guy. I've been out of it 10 years. But I want you to know I did have a choice. And I chose you, and I want to coach you. that's what I said. And the second thing I said was, win stands for what's important now. It isn't about me right now. You've got 2 games left. And then I asked him to go do a couple things just a little bit better. And the last thing I told him was, I've not watched 1 snap of New Mexico football. But I'm going to get this tape Saturday, and I'm going to watch it. And to build on what they did last week against UNLV. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I told him.
Yeah.
So you were in that room right now. You just were part of that.
Yeah, okay. Coach, I guess there's a little bit of an adage sometimes thinking that players take on the personality of their head coach. If you believe that, then what would be the personality of a University of New Mexico football player?
I hate these kind of questions. I hate these of just, what's my personality, what's that? But, you know, hopefully people, when they watch me, you know, it's not about what I say, it's about what I do. And I think that's a pretty good starting point there. You know, I like to think I'm organized. I like to think that I'm an attention to detail guy. And I'd like to think I've lived my life by trying to do the right thing. So let's start from there, and we'll see if we can change the culture a little bit, maybe.
Okay. You have obviously worked with some tremendous coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches throughout your career. Could you comment a little bit on maybe some influences that you've had throughout your career?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I'd love to. I've had, you know, my first job, I was a graduate assistant at the University of Pittsburgh. They had just come off the national championship. Here I am out of Youngstown State, graduate in December. I'm at the University of Pittsburgh as a GA. They just won a national championship. Jackie Sherrill is someone I'll always be grateful for, to giving me a lot of responsibility at a young age. R.C. Slocum, the head coach at Texas A&M, we spent 9 years there. I almost named my son after R.C. That's how much I think about him as a man and as a person. Lou Holtz, one of the most dynamic, smartest people I've ever been around. I spoke to him last night on the phone. Not many Lou Holtzes. Urban Meyer coached for me at Notre Dame. Probably my closest friend right now, along with a guy named Steve Adazio, who's the head coach at Temple. But I could go on and on. And you know, it's not just the head coaches, it's guys you've coached with. Just guys that I've been in that foxhole with, and I've seen how they've conducted themselves and lived their life.
Recruiting, obviously the lifeblood of any program. Just kind of your thoughts on that, and I'm sure New Mexico a focus too, but outside of the state of New Mexico, you know, where are we headed?
Yeah, and I'm not going to slip past New Mexico first. I mean, there's not a lot of high schools here. We understand what the population is, how many kids play football, but we're going to have a presence in this state of New Mexico. We're the University of New Mexico. And as I mentioned, there is a place for a kid that's maybe an inch shorter or a step slower. My son was a walk-on football player at Arizona State. I know how important those guys are to the chemistry of your team. I think the chemistry of your team is really developed by those guys that are the overachievers. It's not the stars, it's the overachievers that set the chemistry of that team. So I'm not going to run off to Texas before I hit New Mexico. Obviously, 9 years in Texas, we all know the high school football Texas, on and on. I'm going to treat that like an in-state deal. I'm not going to run all over the country searching and trying to outstar people. There's some temptation to do that. Albuquerque's a neat city. We got a nice facilities. We could probably get some guys. My experience has been the closer to home guys are, the less problems that seem to develop. And that's not always the case, but it's just what I think.
Yeah. How do you go about assembling a staff now, really? I mean, kind of what do you do? What are the steps that you take? And I'm sure you already got some thoughts in mind about people that you might hire, but what do you do now as you've been named head coach?
Obviously, for the last 10 years, thinking I was going to coach again, you know, all of us have those legal pads where we're writing names down of guys. I'm going to do it in 3 phases, maybe 2 phases. The first phase is from December 2nd really till December 16th, there's a 2-week period there where you can go out and recruit. I'm going to talk to every coach on this staff. That's my starting point. I'm going to make no promises. Some may go recruit, maybe evaluated recruiting. I have probably 3 or 4 coaches that I feel really comfortable about that potentially I could hire pretty quickly. So I'm going to go into that first phase with 4 or 5 coaches, 3 or 4 coaches. Then everything shuts down from December 16th into January with the dead period. coming out of that, I hope to have the whole thing hired, because we know how there's so many moving parts in this profession. There's going to be a lot of coaches that come available. Things are going to twist, a lot of twists and turns. So I just want to take it slowly.
Yeah. And I guess finally, just since you have been a keen observer, really, of what's going on in all of college football for the past 10 years, just, I mean, in general terms, the current state of college football, I kind of in your eyes, in your mind, and also, and maybe a little bit Mountain West as well.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned. You know, I think when you go around the country and talk to players every week, I think there's, and not all, but there's a little bit of a feeling of entitlement from the players, and maybe it's because coaches are making multi-million dollars a year. Maybe it's because we're running all over the country to get in conferences solely for the reason of television money. It's a lot of things. The players see everything getting bigger and bigger and more, and they feel like, well, you know, maybe I should get more of this. So there's a little bit of an entitlement. The second thing I see going around the country is, and why I'm not going to be a coordinator but a head coach, so I can spend time with these players. We all talk about, well, maybe the discipline's a little different now with these young kids. Maybe they don't have as much character. You know, what I've seen is maybe parents, maybe it's a result of us. Maybe parents aren't spending quite enough time. Maybe they want to have children, but they don't really want to take the time to raise that child. Maybe there's coaches out there that aren't really the greatest role model. I'm going to make sure that I give all the time I have to these players, and I'm going to try to be the best role model I can be. So, but I'm concerned about college football. You know, you look at what's happened at Penn State, Ohio State, North Carolina, I keep going. We're under fire right now. And I think all of us have an obligation. I took this job, and I wanted this job for the right reasons. And with that said, that's how I'm going to try to do this. I think we have a responsibility to college football to do that.
Coach, really appreciate your time. Go Lobos.com and LoboTV, and best of luck.
Well,
to you.
we know this is just the first step.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.